This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. You know, all week I've been thinking about that Kevin Stefanski presser and what was the strategy in his mind when he went into that press conference, because what I've been watching on offense is a team that has no belief in their ability to do anything on the offensive side of the ball. And usually when that's the case, you got to make changes. And part of the reason you make changes is because you got to give the people in that locker room some kind of hope that things can be better, right? You can't have people this early in the season be this hopeless about the predicament that they're in offensively. And with Deshaun Watson out there, they're going to remain hopeless. Now, Jameis Winston, bringing him in there might provide some hope. Maybe if you switch out offensive coordinators or change up the offensive playbook, that could provide some hope. You have more than one avenue here to provide some hope to an offensive unit that needs it. And then it made me think about the return of Nick Chubb, which is coming up this weekend. And then things started to make a little bit more sense to me. I still would have liked that the Browns took a different approach to get here. I don't think Nick Chubb coming back makes it acceptable that Watson's still the starting quarterback at this point of the season. But I understand what Stefanski's plan is to kind of manage this locker room and manage the hope in the locker room and this offense's ability to come back. Because just look at this clip of Nick Chubb stepping up to do his first press conference for active game day duty this year. That's something I've never seen before. That is a locker room giving Nick Chubb a standing applause, returning to the podium because they're that excited for him. And then it hit me. Nick Chubb is what this team needs right now. Because with Nick Chubb in there, even if he's not going to play a ton, you have hope for a little bit, right? Because Nick Chubb being out there, that guy's a legitimate difference maker. And having a legitimate difference maker out there, if you're the Cleveland Browns, it's just a massive deal for a team that is struggling to have difference makers. Even on some level, moving Amari Cooper. Look, it was kind of obvious Amari was having his struggles here in Cleveland this year for whatever reason it might have been. Maybe it was frustration with the new offense. Maybe it was frustration with the accuracy of the quarterback. Maybe it was something outside of football entirely that was creating his frustration. And it seemed like he was somebody who needed to just get a change of scenery. And him getting a change of scenery also gives an opportunity to other players. We're going to see more out of Jerry Jeudy now. We might see Jamari Thrash or Cedric Tillman more often. Same thing with Elijah Moore. Like, it gets more people involved in an offense that just hasn't gotten a ton of people involved so far. Like, the Browns still have to manage this locker room. I think it's the most important thing. If you're going to lose, you got to make sure that people don't give up on the program entirely, or that you don't lose the program entirely. I would really like to keep Kevin Stefanski as the long-term head coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he brings a lot to the table as a coach. But if he loses the locker room, if it becomes something at some point to where this team no longer thinks he's credible, then you got to do what you got to do. Nobody really survives that. Once a team finds somebody not credible, you could be the greatest head coach of all time, and we've seen it happen to the greatest head coaches of all time, and it's not going to matter, right? Because a lot of what a coach is supposed to do is create buy-in. And if you lose that ability to create buy-in, you're going to become a lame duck. It's happened to Bill Belichick 2 times. It's happened to Nick Saban. It's happened to some of the greatest coaches of all time. They've lost that. Paul Brown, that's happened to in Cincinnati. Like, it's happened before. It will happen again. It's one of those things. You can have all the great knowledge in your head, but if you lose that ability for the locker room to buy in, you're not going to be able to apply any of it effectively, and it ends up being pretty much useless. And that's the thing that I was worried about with Kevin, and I'm still worried about with Kevin is doubling down on this Deshaun Watson stuff going to create an environment where these guys just don't buy into you anymore, or these guys don't really find you credible anymore. To his credit, we've gotten to this point. It's been 6 weeks, and this team still shows the signs of a team that finds their coach to be a very credible person in all of that, because we're not getting the leaks that we've gotten when we've had somebody who was deemed not credible, like a Freddie Kitchens or something like that, right? There's no come get me stories. There's nothing like that. There's not Josina Anderson parked outside of Browns training camp. That's not the thing. But the question is, okay, if you're going to roll with Watson, at least to the bye week, right, which I think is their plan, and then they'll reassess things at the bye week. But if you're going to roll with Watson for 3 more games, given how he's looked in the first 6, especially if those 3 games are at home, you got to have a plan to inject some hope into this offense. And I think Nick Chubb is that plan. The Browns moved back to running the ball way more last week than they did in prior weeks, right? Deshaun's passing totals were getting up to 40 passing attempts in week 1, a similar number in week 3, and another big number in week 6. So, well, not week 6, in week 5, my bad. So, yes, the Browns were leaning towards throwing the ball more at certain parts of the season. But last week, they kept Deshaun Watson's passing attempts under 30, which is rare for Kevin. Usually, Kevin keeps his guys at around 30. The fact that Deshaun was under 30 is kind of a sign of where they want to go. They want to run this ball more, even if they don't have their guys healthy. Jerome Ford left that game very early. The Browns still ran the ball a ton with Pierre Strong at the end of that game. I don't think they care who's in, who the personnel is. I think they're going to run the ball a lot. This week versus Cincinnati, it's going to be a prime week to run the ball, because Cincinnati, not a good run defense. If the Browns are going to sneak one out versus an opponent people don't expect them to beat, I do think it's going to be this week versus Cincinnati, because Cincinnati's defense is not great as a secondary, but they're really poor as a run defense. And if the Browns could do anything next week or this week, they're going to be able to run the football. And if the Browns are able to run the football, they're going to be able to score points. You're going to have more hope on offense. But I think that's going to be what this is going to be. The run game's going to have to carry the offense. You're going to have Jed Wills and Jack Conklin be healthy for 2 weeks in a row for the first time all season. So hopefully you get better run blocking performances from your tackles. You're going to hopefully get Ethan Posick back, which I think will be a big deal. If you get Ethan Posick back, you get Michael Dunn as a guard, where he's a more natural fit as a run blocker. And then you have Joe Bitonio. I think you can run the ball with that. If you dash in some Nick Chubb, maybe you get Jerome Ford back to practice, maybe you don't, but you have Pierre Strong, you have Deontay Foreman. Naheem Hines should be back as well this week too, right? That's kind of flying under the radar. The Browns are going to lean heavily on this run game. Now, again, my personal opinion, and this is just my personal opinion, is that if you're going to do that, it makes a lot more sense to have Jameis in, because Jameis is much better at some of the play action boot stuff. He's been much better at that in his career than Deshaun Watson has. You go back to Jameis's 2021 numbers, which is the last real sample of him being a starting quarterback. He was excellent in play action, right? I believe he was 41 of 48 passing, and then had 4 touchdowns out of play action situations. Deshaun Watson, on the other hand, has never really been a heavy play action use quarterback, and you can tell he's a bit funky with it. He can execute it at times if the concept is open and easily perceivable, but there are other times where Deshaun Watson really struggles to see what's going on or to make sense of what's going on in play action. Also, there are times where Deshaun Watson just is not fluid on some of the play action footwork that I think is an issue here, right? And this is just normal Deshaun Watson we're talking about. We're talking about 2023 Deshaun Watson. We're not even bringing in the fact that he's been much worse at everything that he's been doing over the last few years. This year specifically. So I would expect much worse performance from him as a play action quarterback. So again, I think personally, if you're going to do this, it makes a ton of sense to put Jameis in. But if they really got to figure it out with Deshaun for whatever reason, if they got to figure out how they want to prop him, what level you can prop him to, if they really want a thorough examination of Deshaun Watson, even though I don't think it's necessary anymore. I think we know everything we need to know about Deshaun at this point. And I think we know enough to know that, hey, this is lost cause. But yet, if we want to hang on to still wanting to figure out more, which I do believe to be coping, this is the best way to do it, right? Run heavy game, lean on Nick Chubb. You're going to at least have hope on offense that you can get multiple first downs in a half of football. Right now, the Browns are leaning on their pass game. Their pass game is not just bad right now. It's historically bad because they're getting historically bad quarterback play. Look, the more you take the ball away from the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns going forward for the end of the season, the better the offense will be. It doesn't matter who's in there, right? Because I don't think you're going to get superstar level quarterback play from DTR or superstar level quarterback play from Jameis Winston or whoever, right? You're not going to find a quarterback right now that you're going to switch to that can carry an offense. That's just not on the menu for this team. So the path going forward for this football team is, how do you minimize the impact of the quarterback position? If you can find a way to minimize the impact of the quarterback position, basically run this offense like you're running a rookie quarterback, then I think you'll be better off than what they've been doing before, where they were maximizing the impact of the quarterback position and it was blowing back on you in a very, very bad fashion. So that's my thoughts about bringing back Nick Chubb and what Nick Chubb means to this team. It's a change of focus in how this offense is directed, and it's an option here. At least gives you an option on offense to minimize quarterback play where they just didn't have that option before. And I think you'll see better offensive play because of it. And I think it's going to be because, again, they're keeping the quarterback further and further away from impacting the game. That's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night. Peace.